Hi guys and welcome back. In this video we're going to be looking at the Omega Seamaster 200 meters professional. This watch is commonly known as the pre-Bond Seamaster, as it was made before Seamasters became the Bond watch of choice. So this is a very important watch for Omega. It was the first Seamaster that followed the kind of line of a Submariner, a kind of standard sports watch look of a rotating bezel with markers every 5 minutes and a standard, black face sports watch on a steel bracelet. Seamasters hadn't really looked like this before. They hadn't been waterproof to 200 meters, which it says on my dial underneath that minute hand. So let's talk about specs of this watch. It's a 36mm case. If I could get it. 36 including the crown. We've got a 39.5 and thickness of 9mm. 9 as well. We have a very unusual integrated case with a lug width of 8mm. You can see that there. And the depth of the case, depth of the buckle being 6.7, and the width of it being 20. So, what are the notable features about this watch, and why is this my favourite watch at the moment? Now, first of all, why is this my favourite watch? I have to say this, it wears really, really well for me. These very short links you see in the bracelet, they allow for great articulation of the bracelet, meaning that it bends really well around your wrist and feels almost like a mesh strap. It doesn't have the kind of jagged kind of articulation that a normal oyster bracelet would have. This having a lot smaller links, a lot more of them, means a bit like a Jubilee bracelet, you get more of a circle. So you picture like a square, you've got 4 sides, and then like the more sides you add, the more it becomes a circle until you have infinite sides, essentially, and it becomes a circle. So that I really like. Secondly, I really like the depth. I think 9mm is really nice on my wrist. It's proud but not too proud. It's not got a big bulky kind of underneath section to the case. Case is actually indented, which I really, really like. And the weight of this watch is 100 grams, which I really, really like. I think it's a really good weight. I think it wears really well on my wrists. I've got slightly smaller wrists, 6-inch circumference, and this fits me really, really well. So that's number 1, is usability. Number 2 is what it is, the name and the significance. Omega Seamaster Professional. If someone ever asks you what you're wearing and you say that and they Google it, it will come up with some really expensive watches. Current Seamaster Professionals start around, I believe, the £3,500–4,000 mark. I could be wrong, they could be a bit less, a bit more. Still, that's a lot of money to spend on a watch in the day. So this would have been kind of a 1980s watch, and in the day this would have been, I guess, around $1,000. Watches have got more expensive, obviously, due to inflation, but they are just generally more expensive these days. And this in the day would have been a good watch. It still is now. And yeah, the name, Omega Seamaster, such an iconic name, that really helped sell it to me. Secondly was the actual price I paid for this. This was an import from Japan, including import tax was about just over £400. which is a lot of money to spend on a watch, but when you compare this to the equivalent year Submariner, even equivalent year Tudor Submariner, in the 36mm case, Tudor Submariner 36mm is about £3.5 grand, maybe 4 for a good one, so a tenth of the price, an eighth of the price. It's not bad. And that combined with obviously quite a nice bracelet, really well built, even, sort of, I don't know how old this watch is, but 30, 40-year-old Omega product. Really, really good, really well built, stood the test of time, really, really well. And it's probably been through a fair few owners. And then we come to the actual job of watch, to tell time. Really, really accurate, I imagine plus minus 1 or 0 seconds a day. Obviously it's quartz. Has the date function as well, which is really handy. For me personally, in the job I do, a watch has to be able to tell date and time really accurately, and this does, and really clearly. That's good as well. Second, another point is for waterproofing. I don't give this one wet because I haven't had it pressure tested, but the correct seals and correct pressure testing accoutrements, it's not focusing. If the camera will focus, you will see on the dial 200 meters. It is a Seamaster after all. It is a waterproof watch, screw down crown and screw down case back. The actual case back consists of this kind of outer ring, but screws down on this. So this case back that has, I'll just undo the clasp. This case back that has the Seamaster logo, this flat bit here, this kind of plate, is separate to this kind of retaining ring. So this ring screws down on this plate, and there's a seal underneath this ring. So not the best design, it's not a one-piece design like you'd see on a more modern Seamaster, but I guess it did the job. You do need to get that checked out before you take it in the sea, because even though it's not the most expensive watch in the world, it's not nice to lose. You probably lose the movement. Second of all, third of, I've forgotten what point I'm on. I like the fact, if I can ever unscrew this crown, Omega sign crown. Then you can't see it. Why is it not focusing? That's ridiculous. You can't. It's an Omega sign crown anyway. It's not letting me focus. Maybe I'll hold it out here. Yeah, there you go. You can see Omega signed. So this doesn't have the more iconic helium escape valve up here, but I like the look of it. That's another point. The look of the case, integrated bracelet, and the fact it's not kind of uniform. It looks a bit different. It's a bit different with this design going on up here. I like that. I like the fact it's a bit different, but not unbelievably different. So with the crown pulled out, so say you were travelling to somewhere that is 2 hours ahead in time, so you just do one click out, 1 and 2, and you put it back in. Second hand hasn't stopped, so you don't need to reset the second hand if you want to keep really accurate time. So that's another really good feature. If you pull it out again once more, you can reset the minute hand. You cannot reset the date, but if you pull it out to that first position like I just did and wind through, that will reset the date. So it's a bit of a pain if the battery dies and it's out of date by 30 days or something. It's a bit of a pain to get it back through, but other than that, it works really, really well, and I really like it. Really good if you're a keen traveller, and a lot of the Seamaster quartzes have this movement. Also, it should have a rotating bezel. This particular example doesn't rotate. It doesn't really bother me. It's a daily wear. It's a cheaper watch. And that's another thing. No one ever comments on it. It's a really nice watch, and if you're in watch circles, people will recognise it. People think it's cool because they're not that common. The Pond Seamaster is a lot more common watch, a lot more likely to be stolen. I know that's something we shouldn't have to think about when we buy a watch, but it's an unfortunate point that in this day and age you have to think about. A lot, these are, a good Seamaster Professional, James Bond one, the early ones, you're looking at £1,000, whereas these half price at 500. Still a lot of money, but I think these are a bit rarer, a bit cooler, and no one really comments on it. No one ever says nice watch, which some people won't like. They'll want to be complimented on it, but I like to go a bit under the radar. And people know this watch, know what it is, and people who don't know, which is great. And that's another thing, investment potential. This is never going to be, £1 million watch. It isn't. It was mass produced in the 80s in the quartz crisis, or just after the quartz crisis, or whenever. It's a quartz mass produced watch, but it has significance. It's the first Seamaster Professional. I think it is just the first Seamaster Professional. The first kind of Seamaster that started this trend of directly rivaling the Submariner as a dive watch, And this watch surely must have been part of the reason why it became a James Bond watch. It's a very, very classical. And they never made another one like this. I think if they do kind of a reissue style watch, similar to this but just modern, I think these could really, really skyrocket in value. If you look online, there are a few for sale, but not too many. And I think all of those factors combined, it's a great watch if you've not got thousands of pounds to spend on a watch. 500 quid is a lot of money, but you've got to look at it. If you spend 500 quid on this, it's going to hold its value. You could buy a couple Daniel Wellington watches for 500 quid. They're not going to be as good as this, not going to be as reliable, as accurate, as cool, not going to hold their money as well as this. This is going to be, I don't see this getting any cheaper than 500. Equally, on that point, I don't see this being, like I said, £1 million watch. I see it being worth something, but I don't see it being worth tens and tens of million. It's just not special enough. But I think it is more special than the £500 price tag at the moment. So yeah, it's great if you love a lighter, smaller watch that not many people recognise, but real watch nerds will know what this is. It's a real cool watch. It's got all the daily features you need. It's great if you travel between time zones. It's got a date function, which I love. And yeah, it's just a really, really good watch. Of course, battery powered quartz. It's going to be part of the reason why it's not so collectible. A lot of them, so there are automatic versions of this. They have, I believe they have a Mercedes style hand. I believe they're around the £1,500 mark. So they really started to creep up. And yeah, I think this will be, it might not be instantly collectible, but I think with years, maybe decades, quarter of centuries to come, this will be a nice collectible piece. Harkens back to a time, this is 36mm, which I love. It's not too big, not too small. It looks good on my wrist, but it doesn't overfill it, it doesn't strain my wrist. You can see there. There it is on my wrist. I've got smaller wrists, so it is just naturally going to look quite big. I was wearing this for a lot and I took it off for a day and I wore kind of a standard 40mm sports watch and it just felt so big and so hard to wear. This is effortless to wear, never puts a strain on your wrist. That's partly because the sizing I've got on this, it fits my wrist really, really well. Is this an out and out tall dive watch? No. It's never going to probably be as durable. You know, the bracelet is a bit 80s. You know, this one's probably had quite a hard life. You know, look at the fading on my hands, on my dial. The looms faded away on my bezel. So it's never going to be the out and out tall watch. But I think for 500 quid, I don't think there's a better watch out there. Particularly if you've got smaller wrists. Really, really good shout on this watch. Really good daily. And yeah, it's just such a brilliant watch that I don't think a lot of people are picking up on. You know, the Tudor Submariners, they're skyrocketing now. You know, a mini sub is kind of upwards of £2,000. You know, and I don't think a mini sub is better than this. You know, yes, this is a quartz watch, but it means it's thin, light, and very, very accurate. Quartz does have some advantages. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed the video, guys, and be sure to leave some comments below if you've got one of these watches. If you have a Seamaster Bond, I previously owned one, didn't get on with it quite well. And yeah, just any comments, drop them below, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks for listening. Cheers.